My name is Vivienne, and I am 21 years old. People who meet me now see the confident college student, the girl with a trace of Southern accent who grew up on a farm in Kentucky and talks about sustainability and business plans as if I had been born into them. But that's not the beginning of my story. The beginning is darker, lonelier, and it still echoes in my bones. When I was 9, my father lost himself to gambling. At first it was poker nights with his friends, a few bills exchanged across the table. Then it became casinos, backroom games, strangers in our kitchen whispering about debts. My mother, once a bright and careful woman, crumbled under the weight of it. She drifted into a fog of pills and endless sleep, unable to fight him, unable to save me. By the time the foreclosure notices showed up on our door, my father was more ghost than man, and my mother was a shadow curled on the couch. The night they left me is one I can never forget. I woke up to silence in the house, no clatter of bottles, no low arguments from the kitchen. Just silence. Their car was gone from the driveway, and a single note sat on the table, *, we can't do this anymore. Don't wait for us. *, I was 9 years old, staring at a piece of paper that erased my family in 4 sentences. The neighbors called social services when they realized I had been alone for days. I remember the cold vinyl seat of the government car, the strange woman in a beige coat trying to make her smile soft, telling me I would be safe now. Safe was a word that felt foreign, something other kids might understand. To me, it was just another empty promise. For months, I bounced between foster homes, strangers' couches, rooms with pink curtains that weren't mine, dinners eaten in silence under the weight of unfamiliar eyes. Some families were kind, others detached, but none of them felt like home. I learned to keep a small backpack packed at all times, a few clothes, a notebook, the stuffed rabbit I'd carried since I was 4. I was ready to move at a moment's notice, because that's what life had taught me. And then came the Harpers. They lived on a sprawling farm outside Lexington, Kentucky, a place where the horizon was wide and golden in the evenings and the air smelled of earth and hay. Jacob and Ruth Harper were in their 40s, childless after years of trying, but their love for each other was steady, and their home radiated warmth the way my old one never had. When I first arrived, I thought it was temporary, another stop before the next. But the Harpers didn't treat me like a visitor. They treated me like I belonged. Life on the farm was unlike anything I had known. The Harpers were among the state's largest suppliers of dairy and grain, and every day was a rhythm of labor and reward. I learned to gather eggs at dawn, to feed calves with bottles nearly as big as me, to ride in the tractor's cab while Jacob explained how soil rotated crops better than any textbook could. Ruth taught me how to cook cornbread from scratch, how to stitch a torn sleeve, how to plant wildflowers along the fence line just because beauty mattered. For the first time, I felt rooted. At 12, they filed for adoption. The day the judge signed the papers, Ruth wept openly, holding me as if she had given birth to me herself. Jacob squeezed my shoulder and said, "You're ours now, kiddo. No one can take that away." And I believed him. For once, the word safe meant something real. The years that followed shaped me in ways I never imagined. The Harpers gave me not just shelter, but responsibility. By 16, I was keeping books for the farm, learning about supply chains, negotiating with distributors. They treated me as their daughter and as a partner in their life's work. On my 18th birthday, they handed me papers to a trust fund, not enormous, but substantial enough to pay for college and give me a foundation. "This is your future," Jacob told me. "Use it wisely." And for a while, I believed that the past was behind me. The girl abandoned in a broken house was gone. I was Vivienne Harper now, daughter, student, farmer's child, college freshman. The pain was still there, like a scar under the skin, but it didn't define me anymore. Until, one day, it did again. College gave me distance, 3 hours from the farm, a different state, a new name sewn onto my student ID. I majored in agricultural economics because it let me braid who I'd been with who I wanted to become. I worked mornings in the campus greenhouse, studied at night, and on Sundays called Ruth to talk weather and markets like other girls talked about bands. That fall, a regional co-op profiled Harper Ridge in a glossy blog piece about next-gen agriculture. There was a photo of me standing between grain bins, hair braided, sun at my back. The caption read, Vivienne Harper, operations intern and scholarship recipient at Midwestern State. I didn't think much of it. It felt like a postcard home to the industry that raised me. 2 weeks later, my past walked into a lecture hall. I saw them before my mind would let me name them, a woman with a brittle smile and a dress one trend behind, a man going soft at the middle, jaw clenched around a toothpick as if it might hold him together. The smell reached me first, menthol and old coffee, a memory I'd spent years unlearning. The woman's eyes searched rows of faces until they found mine. She lifted a hand. Waved. Vivienne, she said in the doorway, bright, breathless. Look at you. Only my bones answered. Not here, I thought. Not now. I slipped my notebook into my backpack and walked past them, down the hall, out into the October air that tasted like cold pennies. They followed me to the steps. Honey, wait, the man said. His voice had flattened over the years, sanded down by ashtrays and cheap apologies. We've been looking. For 12 years? I heard myself ask. My voice didn't shake. It surprised me. He flinched, then recovered with the salesman's smile I remembered from nights spent pretending to sleep in a too-bright apartment. We finally found you. A friend sent us that farm article, said she recognized your eyes. We tracked the school easy after that. Public websites tell you everything if you know where to look. The woman reached for my sleeve. I stepped back and saw, for the first time, the small figure half hidden behind her coat. A little girl in a too-thin hoodie, hair tangled, sneakers 2 sizes too small. She clung to the woman's purse strap the way I used to cling to the arm of the couch when thunder cracked the windows. This is Lena, the woman said, too casually. Your sister. 5 years old, I guessed. Maybe less. Bones like bird wings. Eyes like locked doors. Lunch, the man said. Let's get lunch. We can talk. I should have said no. I should have walked to the campus police station and given them 3 names that once belonged to me. Instead, I texted my roommate my location and sat in a booth at a diner with sticky syrup bottles and tooth-marked menus, because part of me was 9 again and still wanted an explanation that didn't exist. They ordered an appetizer sampler and a glass of wine she couldn't afford, and nothing at all for Lena. The girl's gaze hovered over the chicken tenders like a moth over a porch light. I slid the plate toward her. It's okay, I said. Eat. She looked to the woman for permission and got a distracted nod. She ate like timing was a gamble. We saw in the article you were on scholarship, the man began, folding and unfolding his napkin. And, what do they call it? A family education trust? His eyes flicked to me, gauging, fishing. That's good. It's good you've got something. That's private, I said. And it's mine. Family shares, he said, softening his tone. The world's hard. We've had a run of bad luck. Your mom's meds aren't cheap. Work's been, well, let's not talk about that. Point is, we deserve to get back on our feet too. Blood looks after blood. You left me alone in a house at 9, I said. My hands were flat on the table. In the reflection of the napkin dispenser, my face looked older than 21. We left because it was the only way to save you, the woman said quickly, the words too smooth, like a speech practiced on the drive. You don't know the kind of men your father owed. I know what hunger feels like, I said, and looked at Lena, who paused mid-bite as if the word itself were a whistle only children could hear. He leaned in. Lowered his voice. Listen. We have a way to clear our debts. A friend can help if we can show we've got cash flow coming. You sign a little thing, a temporary assignment, nobody's stealing anything, sweetheart, and in a month or 2, the money comes right back. You won't even feel it. There it was. Not how are you, not we're sorry. Paperwork. And if I don't? I asked. The toothpick moved from one corner of his mouth to the other. We know where those folks live, he said. Nice place for people who take in other people's kids. Folks talk. Be a shame if the state had questions. Be a shame if the co-op wondered about their compliance, you get me? Inspections can slow a farm down. My heartbeat didn't quicken. It steadied, the way it does before an animal bolts. Are you threatening the Harpers? He smiled with only half his mouth. I'm saying doors open when people are motivated. We're all just trying to survive. Survival isn't a threat, I said. It's a story you tell yourself when you've run out of apologies. The woman reached across the table, catching my wrist with fingers still rough from the work she never kept. Her voice dropped to a whisper that tried to sound like plea and landed on hiss. She's your sister. You going to watch her go hungry while you sit on money? I turned my hand and set it gently over Lena's, which had frozen on the rim of the plate as if movement might cost her. I won't watch her go hungry, I said. I promise you that. I paid the check. I bought a coat from the thrift store across the street and slipped it over Lena's narrow shoulders while her mother rummaged in her bag for a lighter she'd promised herself she wouldn't use. Outside, on the curb, the man handed me a cheap business card with a number scrawled across the back. Room 217, he said. Motor in on 10th, think about the paperwork. Come by tomorrow. We can make this easy. Or you can make it something else. They walked away, Lena half-dragged by the strap she clutched. At the corner, she glanced back. It was a single flare in a night window. I stood on the sidewalk until their figures dissolved into traffic. Then I sat on a bench, pulled out my phone, and did what Ruth taught me to do when a fence line breaks: call the neighbor, call the vet, call the county, do not pretend the herd will hold. I called Jacob first. He didn't say I told you this day might come. He said, where are you, and then, we're coming. I called the campus counseling center and asked for the emergency advocate whose name I'd memorized and hoped never to need. I called the state child protection hotline and reported what I had seen: a 5-year-old underweight, neglected, used as leverage in an extortion attempt. I repeated the threats as calmly as if I were reading rainfall totals. And then I called the Harpers' attorney, the woman who had handled their adoption of me and the paperwork for the trust Ruth and Jacob built with milk checks and patience. Document everything, she said. Do not meet them alone. Do not sign anything. If they show tomorrow, we'll be there with a constable. In the morning, we'll petition for an emergency protective order for you, and a welfare check for the child. Her name is Lena, I said. Saying it out loud felt like the first plank in a bridge built in a hurry, over water you didn't notice until you were in it. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk and wrote everything I could remember about my own case: the neighbors who called, the beige coat, the way a judge looked at me and said permanent and meant it. I wrote down the things Lena had not said, the way she waited for permission to eat, the silence where a 5-year-old's questions should be. At dawn, the world thinned to the soft gray I knew from the farm, the hour when calves bawl and the lights in the milking parlor make their own little constellation. I watched the sky shift and felt something old and cold in me crack. They had taken a childhood from me once. They weren't going to take hers. The next evening, I returned from the library to find the door to my dorm room ajar. A thin strip of fluorescent light bled into the hallway, out of place in a building where RAs patrolled like hawks and students locked doors by instinct. My stomach tightened before my hand even touched the knob. Inside, the air felt wrong. My desk drawers had been yanked open and dumped, papers scattered like fallen leaves. My lamp lay on the floor, bulb shattered, as if someone had swept an arm across the table in one practiced motion. The closet door hung open, clothes pulled down and trampled. On the mirror above my dresser, a jagged crack ran diagonally, spidering outward. The word "listen" was written in black marker across the glass. I froze in the doorway. My roommate wasn't home, she was gone for the weekend. No sign of forced entry. Which meant whoever had been here either had a master key, or had waited until someone opened the door. And then I saw it, On my pillow, placed neatly as if it were a gift, sat the same business card he'd handed me the day before. The cheap print, the name of a non-existent consultant, the same number scrawled on the back. But now, in fresh ink, 3 words had been added. Last warning, Viv. The sound reached me next, a faint shuffle from the corner. My eyes snapped toward the closet. A toy horse figurine, one I'd brought from the farm as a reminder of steadier days, rolled out across the floor. I realized someone had been in here very recently. Maybe still was. I stepped backward into the hall, dialing campus security with hands that shook but did not drop the phone. My voice when I spoke was calm, clipped, the way Ruth always sounded when a heifer calved early. State the facts, don't waste breath on panic. By the time the security officers arrived, the intruders were long gone. But they had left behind proof enough: fingerprints on the mirror, the wreckage of my space, and the unmistakable stink of menthol smoke still lingering in the air. The officers took notes, asked if I had enemies. I told them my parents had threatened me the day before. One of them raised an eyebrow at the word parents. I didn't elaborate. They filed a report, promised to increase patrols. But their eyes said what I already knew: dorm vandalism wasn't priority crime. Later, sitting cross-legged on the floor amidst broken glass, I realized what this was. They wanted me afraid. They wanted me to feel unsafe in the one place I had carved for myself outside the farm. They wanted me to believe they could reach me anytime, anywhere. And for a moment, it worked. My hand shook as I swept shards into a dustpan. My chest ached with the memory of 9 years old, waiting for a door to open and never knowing if it would be shouting or silence that walked through. But then I looked at the ruined horse figurine. Its legs were snapped, but its face still carried the same calm carved smile. I thought of Lena's eyes, the way she'd looked back from the corner as her parents dragged her away. Fear turned into something else. I opened my laptop, pulled up the email thread with the Harper's attorney, and added photos of the wreckage. I attached the business card, the word scrawled across my mirror, the incident number from the security report. Escalation, I typed in the subject line. And for the first time since they'd found me, I felt like the one laying a trap. The hearing for the protective order came faster than I expected. Courts have a cruel rhythm: they crawl when you want them to hurry, and sprint when you need time to breathe. Ms. Ellison, the Harper's attorney, filed motions at sunrise. By the afternoon, I was sitting in a wood-paneled courtroom that smelled of old dust, cheap disinfectant, and history. The ceiling fans clicked like impatient metronomes, their tired blades stirring the air but doing nothing to clear the heaviness that settled in my chest. The judge entered, an older woman with silver hair pulled into a severe knot and glasses balanced low on her nose. She carried authority the way some people carry weapons. No smile, no greeting, only a glance at me, then at the empty defense table. My parents hadn't shown. Only Lena was there, small and silent, escorted by a state worker who clutched her hand as if afraid the girl might dissolve into air if she let go. Lena wore the thrift store coat I'd given her last week. It still hung too loose on her frame. Her shoes were the same, scuffed, too tight, pinching her toes. "Petitioner?" the judge asked, her voice clipped, resonant in the chamber. I stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My name is Vivienne Harper." Ms. Ellison rose, her tone steady and precise. "Your Honor, my client is the adoptive daughter of Ruth and Jacob Harper, long-standing agricultural producers in this state. She has been harassed and threatened by her biological parents, who located her by exploiting a newspaper feature on the Harper's farm. Yesterday, they confronted her at her college, demanded she sign over her trust fund, and threatened retaliation against her adoptive family if she refused. Additionally, they are in possession of a minor child, Lena, who, by all visible measures, appears malnourished and neglected. We are seeking a protective order for Ms. Harper and immediate emergency custody review for the child." The judge peered down at the stack of papers, then back at me. "Vivienne, is this accurate?" My palms were slick, but my voice held. "Yes, ma'am. They left me when I was 9. I grew up with the Harpers. I hadn't seen them in 12 years. Then they showed up on campus, demanding money. They threatened me, and they used Lena to pressure me. Lena, the judge repeated, glancing at the child. And this is her? Yes, Your Honor, I said softly. She's my sister. She needs help. She deserves better than this. The state worker stepped forward, confirming my words. She described Lena's weight, her silence, the bruises that looked older than they should. The judge listened with a sigh that carried both weariness and resolve. Temporary custody will be assigned to the Department of Child Services pending review, she ruled. Protective order for Ms. Harper is granted. If her biological parents contact her or the Harpers again, they will be in violation of this court order. A follow-up hearing will be held in 30 days. The gavel struck. The sound echoed like a door slamming shut. Lena was led away. She looked back at me once, her expression flat, unreadable, her eyes searching mine as though asking a question I couldn't answer. I wanted to run to her, to promise she wouldn't have to wait for people who never came home. But the law is a slow machine, and children aren't delivered by instinct, they're processed, filed, passed from one set of hands to another. For the next week, I lived in two worlds, papers, exams, and the chatter of college life by day, and late-night phone calls with Ruth, Jacob, and Ms. Ellison by night. We built a case brick by brick, every threat, every record of abandonment, every debt and eviction. Ms. Ellison assured me the truth was heavy enough to bury my parents if they tried to contest custody. They'll bluff, she said. Gamblers always do. But the state doesn't like losing children twice. I wanted to believe her. But anxiety coiled inside me like barbed wire. I dreamed of hotel corridors that never ended, of locked doors that never opened, of Lena's eyes staring through glass. The next hearing arrived like a storm. And this time, my parents came. They had scrubbed themselves into versions of respectability, cheap suits that didn't quite fit, hair combed flat, faces rehearsed into remorse. My father even wore a cross around his neck, though I'd never once seen him in church. My mother clutched a tissue she dabbed at eyes that never watered. Your Honor, their lawyer began smoothly, my clients acknowledge past mistakes. But they are committed to rehabilitation. They want to raise their daughter, Lena, together. Breaking up a family now would cause irreparable harm. Family. The word landed like an insult. Ms. Ellison rose, calm as ever. With respect, Your Honor, this is not a family. This is a child used as leverage. My client was abandoned at 9, left in state custody while these individuals disappeared for over a decade. They have no stable employment, no permanent residence, and are under investigation for fraud and extortion. Lena is not safe in their care. The judge listened, impassive. My parents nodded at the right moments, wept when expected. But I saw the twitch in my father's jaw when the trust fund was mentioned. I saw my mother's eyes dart toward me, sharp, blaming, as though I had stolen something that had never belonged to them. Then the judge asked if I wanted to speak. My throat was dry, but I stood. Your Honor, I said, I know what it's like to be Lena. I was her once. I know what it feels like to wonder if there'll be dinner, to hear threats through walls, to be left waiting for people who don't come back. They want money, not her. I don't want to replace her mother. I just want her to have one who shows up. And if they can't, then let her be somewhere safe. The courtroom was silent. Even the fans seemed to pause. Weeks stretched on. Investigations peeled back layers of my parents' lives, debts, eviction notices, pawn slips, missed check-ins with social workers. They skipped supervised visitation, claiming they couldn't afford the gas, though they always found money for cigarettes and scratch-offs. By December, the judge delivered the ruling, permanent termination of parental rights. Lena would remain in foster care until adoption proceedings could begin. The Harpers filed paperwork to become that family. My parents erupted, shouting betrayal, theft, blood. Bailiffs dragged them out, their voices dissolving into static in the hallway. The judge looked at me. Ms. Harper, Are you prepared for the responsibilities you're requesting? Yes, I said. My voice didn't shake. Lena was brought forward, clutching a school charity backpack, her entire life in one small bag. She looked up at me, searching, waiting. Do you want to come with me? I whispered. She hesitated, then nodded once. So we walked out together. But as we stepped into the corridor, I felt it, a chill, the weight of eyes that hadn't let go. My parents' voices still rang in my ears, promises of ruin, of debts that don't just vanish with a gavel. The law had ruled. The papers were signed. But blood, I knew, is a chain some people never stop pulling. And somewhere deep inside, I understood, this was not the end. It was only the start of another fight.